It's donut day on Roadkill Garage because we've got high-tech new fuel droolers on the Crusher Impala.
Big block blown perfection.
This thing's great. The car we're dealing with on this episode is the Crusher Impala, a 1969 Chevy that's been a favorite on Roadkill and Roadkill Garage ever since the episode of Roadkill where we brought over our buddies from Mighty Car Mods in Australia, and we wanted to show them the most ludicrous combination of an American land yacht with big horsepower, and we took them down and did some crazy burnouts. I knocked a tire off the wheel doing burnouts of this thing with a one-legger. It was fantastic. Here's sort of the combination on the car. The engine is a big block Chevrolet. It started out as a 454, but it is stroked and overboard to 498 cubic inches. Now, the thing is really, really tame. It has a small camshaft, small Brodick cylinder heads. It has a Wyand 871 supercharger on it, but I'm only running about 5 PSI, which honestly is barely enough to overcome the parasitic loss of the blower itself, but it makes pretty good power, makes killer torque, runs on 91 octane, and the reason it's so tame is that I want to be able to get in this car and drive it absolutely anywhere. And to that end, we made some other mods. It does just have a turbo 400 transmission, so no overdrive. But the rear end is a Ford 9-inch from Quick Performance. It's got 350 rear gears in it. And in another episode of Roadkill Garage, Steve and I upgraded the thing with all QA1 suspension. We did take it to the track, and this thing has run 1090s in the quarter mile, and you can drive it on the highway 75 miles an hour anywhere. The problem is we've had a bunch of trouble with these carburetors on this thing. And so I one day just made the decision, you know what, Steve? I want to put fuel injection on this thing. And so that's what we're going to do in this episode. Steve, we're known as dinosaurs. You got to admit it.
Well, it's like opposite day, but there has to be a good reason.
There are a number of good reasons.
Let's hear them.
Man, I like the way you just served that up to me.
Well, yeah, I got to tee you up so you can knock them down.
Well, you know what the big impetus of this is, and it's ridiculous. Every time this car is stored, the carburetors clog up the needles and seats because of California, like, high ethanol gas, and this thing floods. It dumps fuel into the engine. But it's not just that. I was also offended by the embarrassing performance of the Crusher Impala at Roadkill Nights last year. And we had that shootout with all the other hosts, and we were all doing burnouts and donuts. And this thing couldn't do donuts because the fuel slosh killed the engine.
Right, I remember that.
You can't have that.
It was awful. I mean, I was embarrassed, and I wasn't even in the car.
I know.
Yeah.
It was bad. You know, normally Steve and I are carburetor guys. We can rebuild them blindfolded. We can tune them for anything. But for whatever reason, this thing has fought me. And so I'm going to say we're going to take the CFI as an experimental step. I'm not saying it's going to be on there forever because I'm a little worried it's not going to look right for me.
And it's throttle body, so it is kind of like a little baby step.
Well, I think, and that's another key point here, is with the 871 supercharger, the throttle body is the right way to go because I don't have a manifold with injectors down below the blower.
Right.
And you have to have fuel entering the top of the blower to lubricate and cool the supercharger. And so throttle bodies make sense. We're going to be installing Holley Sniper EFI. It's their 2x4 setup. The other thing at Roadkill Nights is I almost ran Finnegan and I into the wall because the power steering pump is intermittent, or maybe it's the box, I hope not. And it sits too high in the back.
It's coilover, right?
Yeah, so we just got to adjust that down. Yeah. So that's what's going to go on in this episode. But first, we have to drive from here over to Hot Rod Ranch in Lompoc, California, where we're going to be wrenching on this thing. Should I see if it starts?
Okay. Think it's running good?
All of a sudden, it's running pretty good.
How are we going to know for sure? Yeah, it's running good.
Car's so fun.
Yeah, sounded clean.
Yep, I know. It's running better than it has in a long time. And this car's just awesome. But look, it's cruising at 16-1 right now. I'm looking at the O2 sensor that I've got here in the dash, and it's cruising pretty lean, which is kind of okay as long as there's not a load on it.
What if you're accelerating a little bit? Let's see what it does.
Let's see where the power valve opens right there.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's cruising at 11.8. Will the EFI be able to match the performance of the carburetor?
That's the question.
We made it to Hot Rod Ranch, and man, is this thing fun to drive.
It runs really nice.
Annoyingly, it ran better than it has in a long time. There's nothing wrong with these carburetors right now.
I think you're right, Fred.
I seem a little bit irritable. It's because it runs so good, and we're about to change it. First thing we're gonna do is remove the hood just so you can see better what we're about to do. Let that fall.
Sticker up. Oh my gosh.
It's going to be really hard to say goodbye to all of this stuff. It's so nice and retro correct. I did all of this when I was the editor of Hot Rod Magazine and when this engine was initially in my Crusher Camaro. That yellow car, it was super cool with this engine in it. So we're going to go from like 70s looking greatness to more modern greatness and hopefully running a little bit more efficiently. Our process here is going to be removing the carburetors and linkage and everything. And initially we're going to install 2 Holley Sniper throttle bodies. These are like the self-learning kind of EFI. You can use them as a single 4-barrel on a regular 4-barrel intake manifold. They also sell the 2x4 kit, which is what we are using. And later on in the episode, we're going to have to do a little bit of wiring, upgrading the fuel system, stuff like that. All right, out with the carburetors, in with the throttle bodies. 1 carb off. There we go. Simple as that. So this is a Roots supercharger, positive displacement blower. Basically, it rotates, and there's 2 rotors inside that rotate like this, and they compress air to the outside of the case and shove it in the engine. Basically, because you're shoving more air into the engine, you can burn more fuel, and that makes power. People think boost makes power. It's actually the extra fuel that makes power. The carburetors are off, and we're going to get right to the visual part and bolt on our throttle bodies. On this setup, there is a dedicated front throttle body and a rear one. The rear one has got all of the stuff on it, all of the plugs and wires and the idle air control motor. All of the computer stuff and all of the sensors that it's going to use, with the exception of coolant temperature and oxygen sensor, are built into the throttle bodies, so that's kind of cool. Now, they sell this for both tunnel rams and also for draw-through superchargers like the 671 or the 871. You can also get single 4-barrels that are set up so that you can have a blow-through supercharger or turbo, but for the draw-through supercharging, this thing has a map sensor in it as well, manifold absolute pressure, which is basically a boost sensor so that it knows to add more fuel under boost. But to do that, you have to set it up so that it has a boost reference, meaning you have to take a little plug out of the front of the throttle body right here, and you have to replace it with a fitting that actually doesn't come in the kit. I ordered that separately because I read the instructions in advance. And then you have to put a set screw here to hold the fitting in, and they suggest that you peen that a little bit so that the set screw doesn't chuck itself into your blower under vibration, which sounds like a good idea to me. So I'm going to do that now. What do you think? How does it look, Steve?
It looks fantastic.
You think so?
Yes.
All right, you have to have the rear throttle body tell the front one what to do. So you plug in the injector harness on each side.
What I'm doing here is I'm going to install the linkage bar that connects the forward and rear throttle bodies, and this is adjustable so that you can synchronize the position. It's really easy to do. Just rotate the bar until the bolt slips right into position, and there's a lock nut that goes on the back side, and that part of it's going to be done. The rest of the linkage is going to be pretty tricky because the stock linkage was a rod which activated the throttle way down low at the base of the manifold, and we're going to have to switch to a cable assembly and a new pedal which is going to operate the throttle linkage up here at the top of the blower, and it's going to take a little work to get all that installed and functioning properly. Linkage bar installed.
Whoosh. That kind of has an early level of satisfaction on the installation because you can already see what it's going to look like.
I think it looks good and it'll function fantastic.
Steve's wrapping up the throttle linkage. Now let's get into the fuel system. Anytime that you're changing from carburetors to EFI, you're going to have to up the fuel pressure. As an example, my carburetors are running at 6 PSI, and Holly recommends that the Super Sniper goes up to 58.5 PSI. This car already has this whole arrangement inside the tank. Now, I always recommend if you have to run an electric fuel pump, which you do with EFI, that you run it inside the tank. It helps keep it cooler, and it's going to make it last longer than one outside on the frame rail. This is an Aeromotive Phantom setup. It's a Phantom 340, which is 340 liters per hour. And the interesting thing with these fuel pumps is that they have different horsepower ratings depending on if they're EFI or carbureted, because the fuel pump has to work harder if it's pumping more pressure for EFI, and therefore can support less horsepower overall. The other thing you'll see in the Aeromotive catalog is that they'll rate the horsepower for the pump lower, EFI supercharged versus not. And the reason for that is they're assuming that you've got port EFI, the injectors in the manifold, and therefore you've got boost in the manifold supercharged, and that boost is working 1-to-1 against the fuel pressure trying to come out of the pintle. So again, the fuel pump has to work harder. It's capable of less horsepower. In this setup, that's not a problem. It's all right up top. And so it's going to be able to support the full 850 horsepower that the 340 liter per hour pump will deliver. Now, the rest of the fuel system here, I've got rubber hose running all the way up to the front. That is not technically drag strip legal, but I'm not really worried about that for this car, and I've got it all tied up so that it's safe. But if you look at this filter right here, look how black it is. I believe that is rubber goop coming off the inside of the fuel hose, clogging the filter. Some of it's getting through, and that's probably why we had so much flooding problems with the carburetor. The other thing is this fuel pressure regulator, which is for the carburetors, is an Aeromotive A1000, or I call it an R2D2. It's capable of up to 15 PSI. Therefore, I'm going to be changing to this Holly regulator, which can go up to 90 PSI, and obviously I'll be setting it at the recommended 58.5. I've also got a Holly filter. The filter is critical for this Super Sniper because the holes where the gas shoots out are very, very small. So any particles can plug that or the pintle in the fuel injector. This is a Holly 10 micron filter. All right, let me get into it. I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm gonna mount this doohickey and how I'm gonna plumb all the hoses.
What I've done is I removed the stock pedal assembly. I've got this aftermarket unit, which uses a cable, which gives us a lot more flexibility as far as routing. I've located where I want to mount this. I've got to drill a couple of holes, bolt this up. Then I'll drill a hole for the cable to come through the firewall and set it up to mount in the proximity of the throttle bodies. Get that all hooked up and adjusted, and then we'll have go pedal.
I've got the holes drilled for the pressure regulator, but I'm waiting for some fittings on that. So meanwhile, I'm starting to plumb the fuel system. I'm using rubber line, but it is Earl's Vapor Guard. Here's what's special about that. The ethanol that's in modern gasoline, and I guess the gasoline itself, just makes cheap rubber fuel line like all gushy. The Vapor Guard has multiple layers in it, and there's a layer in there that won't let the gas evaporate. And so it's good for E85 and ethanol and stuff like that. It's also 225 PSI. The other thing that I got for it is some special fittings that Earl's makes just for this hose. I know that it works because I've used it before, and it also has the fuel injection high pressure clamps on it. I just dialed in the fuel system. We put the new regulator on here. This is dash 8 in, and then it has a dash 6 that's splitting into each one of these. Steve finished up the linkage and the cable and the pedal. Now that we're done with all the sort of mechanical part of it, we're moving on to electrical. More wires than we're actually going to use. It looks intimidating.
Yeah, there's not that many.
This whole harness right here is for custom stuff that you can do through the EFI. The brown one here is tack feed. All of these are either to control nitrous systems, which is actually pretty trick. Right. There's an AC solenoid one that kicks the throttle up.
You have a lot of trigger wires too, don't you?
No, it's actually not much. What's going to happen on this wiring harness? This is going to go to the tack output on the MSD, which tells the thing, you know, RPM and everything. This feeds the electric fuel pump. There's the relay for it. And then there's connectors for the battery. And we're not using anything else.
Okay.
I'm procrastinating doing all the wiring I just showed Steve, and there's more work to be done that isn't wiring.
Yeah.
There's 2 sensors that you have to hook up with the Super Sniper, one of which is this coolant temperature sensor. What we're gonna do is have Steve use an impact to pull this pipe plug out of the intake manifold, and then I'm gonna quickly swoop the sensor in to plug it because we're too lazy to drain coolant out of the radiator, so this is gonna puke coolant everywhere. Oh, it didn't leak at all. Oh, this is the wrong size.
What we had is a little mismatch between our fitting, which is 3/8 pipe tap, and the hole in the block, which is 1/2. Fortunately, there's a thing called a bushing, which will adapt the two. We're going to screw this on here, and then that will screw it to the block. Okay.
All right, coolant temperature sensor done.
One of the key sensors for the fuel injection system is right here. It's called the O2 sensor, and what it does is it measures the free oxygen in the exhaust system. So to screw that in, we have to add a bung into the exhaust pipe. So I'm going to drill a hole and weld this in. The bung is done.
I'm done with the wiring. Steve's still working on the battery. Man, we went through this thing and tried to use actual proper crimp terminals and heat shrink. We're just making the EFI better than, frankly, the rest of the car. Now that that's done, I'm going to install a fuel pressure gauge. Reading the instructions for the Super Sniper, it seemed like the handheld device doesn't give you a gauge for fuel pressure. And on EFI cars, I really like to have that so that I can glance down and know immediately if the fuel pressure is dropping off, like if I've killed a fuel pump or running out of gas. It's a good troubleshooter. So I'm going to wire this thing up. The wiring's all done. The next thing that we have to do is find an ignition wire that's hot while cranking. A lot of the wires that come out of the fuse block will go dead while the engine's cranking, but then the EFI won't fire. So, you ready for that?
I think I have our likely candidate.
Is it hot while on?
Yes, hot now.
Ready for cranking?
Crank away.
Yes!
That's the winner.
Great. Next thing we're gonna do is Steve's gonna jump the fuel pump and it's gonna run. I'm gonna check for fuel leaks and then we will set the fuel pressure at 58.5. Go. No leak, no leak. Let me see what the pressure is. 13. All right, regulator pressure being adjusted.
I can just do this and adjust it while you look at the gauge.
Don't tell me that's a low pressure pump. Yep, it isn't changing, it's 13. How can that be? All of the aeromotive pumps are carbureted or EFI, and the regulator changes it. This means we have to change the pump in the tank. Oh, that's frustrating. I can't believe that. Much to my irritation, we're gonna have to pull the tank out of it. We went through a lot of troubleshooting and figured out that this is a low pressure pump, which Steve recalled. I thought it was that Aeromotive 340. So we need to pull it out and find out if we can replace it with that Phantom 450 that I got. As soon as Steve gets this rubber hose off, this is ready to come out. All right, we got the tank out. I can see here this has an Aeromotive Phantom in it, which is confusing to me because I really thought this was gonna make fuel injection count of pressure. That is an Aeromotive pump. Ooh, let me look up the part number. 11542. That is a 340, just like I thought it was. Can be used in carbureted or EFI applications.
One of the things we noticed on the old housing that routes the fuel outlet and return and all of that is right on the outlet side, on the inside of the tank, we have this apparatus that's not evident on our new one. And it looks like it's a bypass valve. So this must have been a device for operation with the carburetor, which prevents too much fuel going downstream to the regulator or too much fuel pressure going downstream to the regulator. And This probably would have worked if we took this out and put a pipe plug in it, as we have in the other one.
We decided to use the entire housing and bracket assembly from the new pump just because we can. All that's left is put it all back together the way it came apart. All right, gas tank is done. Now we have to pour gas in it and check fuel pressure again. One more time, fuel pressure.
Okay, here goes, contact.
49, 50, 51.
What do we want?
53 and a half, 52, 53, 54. That's good. Fixed.
All right.
Oh.
It worked.
Yep, I think absolutely what it was what you spotted, which was that bypass in the other pump. It was like an adapter for carburetors.
Yep.
All right, lock that down. Next thing, I have to walk through the handheld and tell the computer what to do. Then we should be starting it. Remember, the deal with the Super Sniper is that it's designed so that you don't have to use a laptop to get it running, but you do have a little handheld device, and you need to give it some parameters so that it can actually fire up. It's really easy to do. You go into the setup wizard. You have to tell the thing, like, your engine displacement, what camshaft you have, which ignition system you're using, and then it sets up a base just so that it can get it running, and after that you go through and set some other stuff. I've got the setup wizard done, and they say that if I turn the key, it's gonna start. Ready, Steve?
Freiberger, start that engine.
If it fails, it's gonna be because the battery voltage is only 11.7, which is the Roadkill standard. Here we go. 9 volts. The instruction says it won't start below 12 volts, and it's got 9. Last night we were trying to fire up our EFI and we only had 9 volts. Hopefully that was the problem. This morning we have a brand new battery. I hope it runs.
Check fuel pressure too.
Pump, 54 PSI.
That should work.
That doesn't start, Steve.
No way.
Okay, so it fires but doesn't keep running.
It lasted a little longer that time.
All right. We went for initial startup and it cranks and it fires and immediately dies. And the thing we're guessing is that we were like so super excited about firing it, we're ignoring the voltage thing again. The problem is we don't have an alternator that functions, so we're gonna go ahead and change that. The problem I see forthcoming with that is it's a 1-wire alternator that needs to self-excite, which means it needs to rev up to about 3,000 RPM to start charging. And at this point, we're never gonna get there. But there's no downside to changing the alternator, so that's what we're gonna do. Okay, let's see. That revved up to 2,500 and then died.
By itself?
Uh-huh. We still haven't gotten the Impala started. There's a problem that has crept up, which is the fuel pressure. It used to be rock solid at 55 PSI, and all of a sudden I looked down and it had crept up to 75, and the next time I turned the key, it was 92. So Steve got in there and adjusted it back down, and next thing you know, it was creeping up again and puking gasoline out the top of it. So fortunately, we had my super secret storage area nearby, and we had this parts truck sitting here that has an EFI regulator on it, or should I say, that had an EFI regulator on it. This one is configured just like the regulator that we've got on the Impala. It's in on one side, out on the other, and return on the bottom. This is the curse, isn't it? You start parting out cars in order to make things happen, and you never get them back together. Regulator's all installed. In the muscle truck, this was set at 45 PSI, but this will probably be different because it's a different pump. So I'm gonna hop in and have Steve adjust it and check it, and hopefully it doesn't leak, and hopefully it's the solution to our problems. 51, 52, 53.
Okay.
Ready to start?
Start the engine, Freiberger.
fitness.
That's what we're talking about. Move! Boom! Boom! That's right.
So it wasn't a fuel injection problem, it was a mechanical problem with the regulator. Solved.
Oh, I should get this gasoline-soaked rag off the header.
Yeah, probably. Was there any leaks?
No.
Okay. And the muscle truck fuel regulator saved our bacon. This thing fires up, it idles smooth, it takes a good throttle whack. The last thing on that is going to be to go drive the thing around, let it self-learn, and also do some more things on that handheld, but we'll get to that. First, the problem with the power steering on this thing is that that pump just groans constantly. So I'm going to make Steve fix that. And then I have a new disappointment for you over here. I'll tell you about that in a second.
Our old power steering pump was groaning all the time when we were trying to turn the wheel, and it wouldn't apply power steering. So we've got the old pump off, and we've got the new pump here. The difference is the pressure relief valve is a different fitting. I had to swap them over so that we could connect our pressure line. Also, these studs, which manage the adjustment and mounting brackets, they're different, so I'm going to remove a couple of things here, swap them over from one to the other. Luckily, all those parts are compatible, and I'll soon have this ready for installation.
Fans of the Crusher blown big block Chevy that was in the Crusher Camaro before this and that now resides in the Crusher Impala, I realize that the gold Moroso stamped aluminum valve covers are a signature of this engine. The problem is they leak so bad. They don't have enough rigidity to hold the gasket down, and worse than that, this breather right here has no baffle in the valve cover. And so we tie these rags on, it soaks them with oil, it drops on the headers, it smokes. So as much as I hate this, it is going to get some chrome Moroso valve covers. It's not gonna look as cool. However, this is the key right here. These have baffles in them for the breathers, and so that keeps the oil from dumping out. It's also higher on the valve cover instead of down here. So here we go. Goodbye gold stamped aluminum, hello chrome. Yes, this hurts me as much as it hurts you.
Our to-do list is getting pretty short. What do we have? Oil change, power steering fluid and bleed, spark plugs, rear tires, lower the rear end. That's going to be a suspension adjustment, and then put the hood on. I guess we're going to hit the road. I'm going to start with the spark plugs and then move on to the oil change. That'll take care of the maintenance items. We'll knock this out in no time. What we're going to do is bleed the power steering system with the engine running, and that just involves turning the wheel lock to lock in either direction and adding fluid as required. So start her up, Freiberger.
Key on, firing it up. Fires up instantly. Steve! Not good. It's doing the same thing it was doing at Roadkill Nights. It's tight, and then loose, and then tight. It's the valve in the box, Steve. It's not the pump. Here's what we're experiencing. When you fire it up and you steer right and left, it's really hard, and then boom, it actually steers really easily, and then hard, and then easy. So it's not the pump. Does this have a shuttle valve in the box like a Mopar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this box does not come out without pulling this header. It's no good, Steve.
I know, but we don't have a header gasket or
a box.
or a steering box
Or time.
or time.
Or desire.
Least of all, the desire to
There's
do
zero
that.
desire. So I don't know what we're gonna do about that. It's bad. Well, that was disappointing. We changed the power steering fluid and bled it to no avail. It's like got something serious wrong with it. We also got the air cleaners in, oil change, spark plugs. Here's what's left. Rear tires, I want to put taller ones on because these look ridiculous, although it would be good to burn them off. I want to lower the rear end because with the taller tires, it sits like a stink bug, and that's no good. We have to put the hood on. Boy, that edge is just razor. Think I should bash it?
Was it rubbing before?
It rubbed the slick. I'm gonna try a minimal effort whack job here to fold the wheel lip. Steve pointed out it is triangulated a little bit, and this probably isn't gonna work great, but let's see what we can do. Steve, flawless. It's folding right at that triangulation point. Not damaging the quarter panel one bit. I recommend not doing this to a car you really care about because it tends to like warp the quarter panel, but the Impala is flawless. It will not warp, it's impervious. What do you think, Steve?
Oh, I think you're doing great.
Yeah, he's pretty impressed. Steve checked me out, it was good. I really want to make this thing lower, and here's how we're going to do it. It does have QA1 suspension on the back, which is a coilover arrangement instead of the factory coil spring and 4-link. Now, normally you can adjust the ride height on a coilover by changing where the spring seat is to go up and down. In this case, I'm pretty much maxed out on my compression travel on the shock, so I can't go lower with the body without affecting the shock and making it bottom out. Instead, what we're going to do is leave that overall dimension on the shock absorber the same, but we're going to move the lower mount down, and so that will effectively move the rear end up, which will lower the car. And we're done. All right, I'm gonna change the wheels and tires on this thing. We had blown a tire out in the middle of nowhere doing donuts ages ago, and the only replacements we could get in the middle of nowhere were 225/70/15s. They look terrible. This is a 275/60/15 Cooper Cobra GT, and it's on a 15x8 US Mags dish mag. So this is like my home territory. That's it, the car is way lower in the back. As a matter of fact, it might even need to come up on the coilover just a hair or maybe down a little bit in the front. I'm leaving it alone for the rest of the episode because we got a crash tonight, and then tomorrow we'll be driving the EFI for the very first time, finding out if it does more than just idle, and there's a little bit more tuning to do. And my hope, of course, is that it runs and drives seamlessly. It's perfect. It's way better than the carburetors, and most importantly, that it'll do donuts without sloshing and dying. That's kind of where this whole episode started. Man, we got a lot done, Steve. I'm pretty happy. I've had engine blocks that weigh less than this hood. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, now we carefully test it so as not to scratch the Impala. It's not gonna bite the fender, is it?
No.
Hey, we're gonna drive. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
See if it drives. Ah, the power steering is awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
No hot rodding yet, right?
You're almost up to 160.
Here's how these so-called self-learning EFI setups work. First of all, the manufacturer goes in and builds a whole lot of different fuel tables for a bunch of different engines. And then when you go through the handheld device and you tell it, like your engine displacement, your camshaft, and all those other specs, it decides which table it's going to load. Then you go in and you tell it what target air-fuel ratio you want in a variety of different conditions, like idle, cruise, wide open. After those 3 points, it builds another map that is the target. And then, as you're driving, the O2 sensor reads what the actual air-fuel ratio is. And if it's different than what you've commanded, then it adjusts. And then the computer learns what the percentage of extra fuel or less fuel it takes in order to meet your map. And then the base map remembers that number, and then it drives around on the base map. And so basically what we're doing is driving around at a bunch of different throttle positions and figuring out what we need to do. And if we don't like it anywhere, we can go in the handheld and change a certain amount of stuff, not everything.
Okay, you're at temperature.
All right, so theoretically it should be learning now.
Yeah.
The computer doesn't self-learn until the coolant temperature is at 160 degrees.
It's at 200 degrees.
200?
Yeah.
What does this thing think? Uh-oh. It says air-fuel ratio unplugged. So that's no good. We were driving for our sort of initial cruise, and I noticed that the computer wasn't learning, and I went into the details on the handheld, and the O2 sensor came unplugged. So that's what we're messing with. Okay, well, I just pulled on it pretty hard, and it didn't come apart, so let's go. All right, air fuel's working, and it's learning. Adding 12% fuel right now. Here we go. Wow, the steering is horrible.
Yeah, I know.
This says 14.0, now 13.7. I'm comfortable with that for a cruise air fuel ratio.
Yeah.
You think so? And you can see it went from 14% learning to now it is 0 to -2.
Okay.
So it actually is making adjustments to the table. All right, I'm gonna floor it third, okay?
Yeah.
11.7.
Perfect.
That's what I commanded. Wow, works perfect on the shifts, everything.
Yep.
There's no downside. We're almost converted from carburetors except for price and complexity, I would say.
I'm done as carb guy.
Really?
I'm all about the EFI.
That's a big statement.
Yeah.
I'm also super thrilled with the new alternator.
Yeah?
I'm super thrilled with the new stance. Thing looks wicked.
Oh, way better.
I don't like the power steering.
Well, it doesn't work.
It's no good.
Yep.
Next thing, we're headed out to the donut shop.
Let's go.
Ready for the snappy fire up?
Hit it.
Nice. Good. Pretty good. All right, Steve, remember my main gripe about the carburetors, which is why I wanted the EFI?
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't do donuts in this thing before. It just blood and glug.
Exactly. I'm really upset the power steering still isn't fixed, but nonetheless,
Can you do a donut in it? That's my question.
I feel like we can.
Nice pedal modulation.
I feel like it's fixed.
Yeah, totally. It had no problem whatsoever. It's perfect.
I know. Want to do burnout for distance?
Yeah!
Ready?
Yeah.
This thing goes far. It's
It
fun.
does everything perfectly.
Yep.
Wow.
The EFI is great.
Yeah, you can't beat that, man. It's awesome.
Everything's still super happy.
Yeah, look at that water temperature. It's ice cubes.
This is one of our greatest cars.
It is.
It spins them from a roll pretty good, too. Wow, look at the distance.
Yeah.
This thing's great. I think we officially did the right thing with the EFI.
There is no way it would have done any of this like this.
Nah.
Carburetors.
Nah,
No
it wouldn't
way.
have. I want to see if it'll light them from a roll, you know, like this. Oh, it's so fun!
This thing's awesome, man.
Everyone needs a blower. Everyone needs a Crusher Impala.
Yeah.
Look at that, it's not overheating, the oil pressure's great, it's got voltage. If it only had much more solid power steering, we'd have something here. Dulcich, wow. I find it hard to believe, but I have no complaints whatsoever.
No, there's no way you could have done those stunts with this car when it had carburetors, because the fuel slosh would just cut out.
Proven
all
fact.
the time.
Flood the entire thing. And I suppose that could have been dealt with one way or another, but this is the best way. You know what? I'm like overflowing with like knowledge and like questions and disbelief that I've gone from being a dinosaur carburetor guy to actually loving this setup. It fired up perfectly.
Yeah.
It drives perfectly. It needs a little help on cold start, but I think I know what to do to fix that. And it does donuts. It does burnouts for distance. It's actually flawless.
It's transformative.
I'm still a little bit wary of wires and computers and electric fuel pumps and stuff that could fail.
Yeah.
So I guess I would hold full judgment till I drive this thing for like a year. But right now, 100% sold.
I'm already done.
Man, making a simple modification like this to your car, and when it's rewarding and actually does everything you wanted it to do, it's like such a great experience. There's like no fail whatsoever.
Why do we walk into stuff thinking it's not going to work, and then boom?
Works perfectly.
That's great.
Which is not always what happens on Roadkill Garage.